Rajim, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Youth Perspectives. My name is Syed Mohammed, and on today's program we're going to be discussing an interesting topic that affects our society today. Joining with me on today's program we have Brother Hussain. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Brother Hussain, how are you doing?
Good, alhamdulillah. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. So, Brother Hussain, as you know, we're going to be talking about society and specifically how it looks at the elderly, how the elderly are portrayed in our society, really, and how we as society as a whole looks at the elderly and their roles in our daily lives and everything. So, Brother Hussain, before we get into the main discussion, what is your opinion on how the elderly is viewed in our society today?
I think that the elderly are like, I guess you could say they do put them down a little bit,
right.
Like showing that elderly people are weak and useless, especially in like TV shows and movies and stuff. They show how like elderly people are like useless. They can't really do much to help people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also like how it's kind of like the elderly, like even living with grandparents or parents, right? Just in general, it's kind of, they think like, it's kind of like,
it's frowned upon, basically.
Yeah, basically. And like in movies and stuff and just regularly that people say, oh, when you move out of like the parents' house or something, then you're moving up in life, when
right.
Clearly that's not right.
Specifically, you mentioned about in movies you've seen, for example, about how the elderly is sort of looked at as weak, etc. What have you seen specifically? What is a specific thing that you've seen it?
Like in superheroes, like even if the guy is not even that old, it's been like a few years of him being a superhero, then they start to call him old, and then like, oh, he's not good anymore, and he's useless, and he can't do much. Like there's multiple things that I've seen like that. Like even when like the younger, like a sidekick or something, he like don't want to. Should I give a name? I know
sure.
a specific one. Batman and Robin. Like
right.
Robin, the one that I've recently seen. Robin says, oh, later when he becomes older, right, Batman, then he says, oh yeah, he starts saying, oh, I'm on my own, old man, and he starts referring to him as old man.
Right.
Even though he's still the Batman, and he's still effective, but they think he's weak and he can't do much. And they call him old man.
That's an interesting take, Brother Hussain, and it is a very interesting observation. There's a book called What Can We Learn from Traditional Societies? It's written by a civilization expert called Jared Diamond. And in this book, Diamond compares traditional, for example, small tribal societies to larger, more modern societies, in respect to most of these topics about revolving around getting older. So, for example, one of the things is that you look at countries like India and Pakistan, and in those societies, it is common for families to live together, and even not even live together, but even just remain close for their entire lives. How would you compare that to the American society?
I think Pakistan and India, like, they respect the elders, like, they show that they have wisdom, right? Respect them for their knowledge and their experiences and different stuff like that. But in America and, like, the Western societies, I think that they are kind of shown as just there. Like, for instance, like in, like, some, like a tribe or something, right? Someone, like, back, I don't know when, but they would, like, go make their chief he would be like the smartest or the wisest person, right, fit for the job.
Yes.
But now I think it would be more like whoever is just the youngest and the strongest, capable. Well, maybe even if he doesn't have enough experience, just because he's strong or if he's young, they would make him like a leader of some kind.
So yeah, so you feel that now knowledge is, knowledge and wisdom and experience from the elderly really isn't seen as a main trait anymore, right? It's not seen as the most effective thing, basically.
Yes.
Brother Hussain, you also mentioned about the passing down of knowledge also playing a factor in having more, why our future past generations have had more respect for the elderly. What role do you think the internet plays in that specifically?
Well, I think on the internet, you're able to get information quickly, right?
Yeah.
Without going through a different source. Like, there's many different sources, but the internet, they search all of them for you. But, like, if you want to, like, learn about a certain topic, right? You'll learn about it, but you won't get the experience. Like, you won't get first-hand experience from someone who actually has experience with it. Like, the internet, like, for instance, the robot. A robot is telling you how to cook. Like, the robot doesn't have experience with it. Sure, it can search the web and show you whatever you need to know.
Yeah.
But it won't give you that first-hand experience you need to know in order to, like, make a recipe, like, well.
I remember being in my grandmother's house, and I would see that she had so many different cookbooks, for example, right? And in the cookbooks, so many different recipes. And nowadays, you can search online, basically. You can, look on YouTube, and you can find any recipe you want. And you can find, somebody can tell you word for word and, give you instructions. You can see exactly how to do it. But at the end of the day, I mean, I can't say that, even if I have that knowledge at my fingertips of how to cook, still, even if you're seeing how to do it, that's not the same as, hands-on knowledge of a, relative, a parent, or even my grandmother telling me how to, cook the food, for example. Diamond also mentions, while he admits that, countries around the world do respect the elderly, American society itself discriminates against the elderly due to our culture placing high value on work ethic and individuality. And thus, people are seen as useless when they're no longer able to put in long hours at work, in such a corporate society. Also, individuality, for example, when people are no longer able to be self-reliant. There is a difference, of course, between what somebody can physically do and, what we're, in our minds, what we're capable of doing. And of course, Brother Hussain, as we know that as we get older, this is the promise that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes to us, is that our bodies, we will physically become weaker. We will physically not be able to do the things, even if in our minds, we're able to envision it, we know how to do it, we won't physically be able to do that. And so the toll that the American society has, placing such a importance on this, and the elderly not being able to do that, it becomes a problem.
Well, even though they might not be at their physical peak, right? Like,
Yeah.
they won't be able to physically do stuff. They'll still be able to spread their knowledge because they are mentally the same. They've obviously gained experience through all the years of their lives. And even if they're not physically at their peak, they can still spread their knowledge and use it somehow. Like, knowledge, so even if someone's old, right, an elderly person, they're not useless because knowledge is never useless, wherever it comes from, wherever anything. And that hands-on experience, even if they're not at their physical peak, their information is very useful. Even if they're not useful physically, mentally, and information-wise, they'll always be useful.
Those are some very good points. Going back to the point about the, brother saying the, the elderly being not being self-reliant, right? And how that impact that has when looking at the, American society's basic discrimination against old age itself. For example, even you look at being able to drive a car. Being able to drive the car, it's given some level of respect itself of being, being an individual, of course, and being able to, for example, you can go to the store, get your groceries, you don't have to rely on other people. And, of course, as people get older, you get to an age where you're no longer able to do that. Physically, you're no longer able to do that. It becomes a risk. And so losing that in itself and having to rely on someone else to get your groceries, having to rely on someone else to, do your daily things, that has a toll itself. Now, Brother Hussain, you mentioned about, for example, society looking down on, for example, the traditional sense of, people living with their parents and living with their families. Why do you think that is? Why do you think it's seen as something that's not, respected?
I think that is probably because it's basically like a cultural norm. Obviously, in Pakistan, in different countries, India, right? Living with your parents, right? Caring for them and this and that, and different religions, cultures, especially Islam, right? Caring for the elderly, caring for your parents is definitely like important in our religion. And obviously in these Western societies, that is the cultural norm is basically moving out of your parents' house and starting your own life, starting fresh, starting a family, and basically being on your own instead of like being with the elderly. You're living with your parents.
Very well put, Brother Hussain. We're going to take a short break, and when we get back, we're going to look at a video which demonstrates the respect towards the elderly. I'll see you when we get back.